If you are going to overcome the forces trying to keep you down as far as your business is concerned or in your entrepreneurial journey, you have to have your inspiration tank fully loaded, because it is your inspiration tank that will fuel the brilliant action that you require to surmount all the challenges that will come your way. You have to stay inspired, not because you just want to believe it blindly, but because you have been inspired with a why based on a what for a who. And when your creativity is firing on all cylinders, there's no challenge that you won't be able to surmount on your way out of the gravitational pull of rejection, the gravitational pull of... Have you ever wondered why most businesses are stuck? Have you ever wondered why most entrepreneurs are stuck at a particular level? They are stagnant and they cannot move forward. They are basically surviving and not thriving. Have you ever wondered why many businesses are not able to survive past 5 years, past 10 years? Have you ever wondered why many entrepreneurs will get an idea, a beautiful and a brilliant idea, run off with that idea and start working on that idea, implementing that idea, and then after a while they lose steam and they shut down the business or they shut down their idea? Well, I hate to break it to you, there's one mistake that most businesses make that keeps them stuck. And so if you are listening to this, today is a lucky break, because by the end of this video, you're going to know the one mistake that keeps most businesses and entrepreneurs stuck, so that you don't get stuck. The thing about this mistake is that it doesn't matter the level you're at as an entrepreneur, whether you're an entrepreneur that's already making 5 to 6 figures monthly or 5 to 6 figures yearly, this same mistake can also keep you stuck. Whether you're doing 7 to 8 figures monthly or 7 to 8 figures yearly, this same mistake can also keep you stuck like chalk in a pickup truck. Whether you're just doing $0, this same mistake can keep you stuck. And so if you're an entrepreneur or you have a desire to become an entrepreneur in the not so distant future, you want to listen to this, because this is going to empower you to overcome this mistake and not just survive as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, but thrive. Now, to further buttress the importance of knowing this mistake and knowing how to overcome this mistake, I'm going to give you some examples of big businesses that were doing well, but because of this same mistake, they've shut down or they've been run out of business by their competition. And once you learn how to avoid this mistake, you're going to crush your competition regardless of the market you find yourself as an entrepreneur. I'm going to give you this example, and I'm going to give you an example of these businesses. I don't know if you've heard about a company named Blackberry, but Blackberry is a Canadian business that was once one of the biggest players in the smartphone industry. They were doing so well until they made this very mistake. And the moment they made this mistake, it was very difficult to correct that mistake. And that was how their business began to go down. Their revenue began to tank, and they became forgotten and almost obliterated. The company had to be sold out for basically peanuts because of that mistake. Now, the next business I'm going to tell you about is Nokia. And a similar story can be said concerning Nokia. Nokia was one of the big players in the phone industry even before Blackberry came into the game. And Nokia dominated the industry with their products, with their phones, and with their design. Solid design, solid phones. But because they made this same mistake, they got run out of business. They went from thriving to surviving, and then they became stuck. So on the left, you have businesses that got stuck, and then on the right, I'm going to tell you about businesses that excelled. These are businesses that excelled or thrived, and these are businesses that got stuck and were surviving until they got run out of business. This is too important if you're a business owner, because not knowing this can cause you to lose millions of dollars in your business. It can cause you to lose billions of dollars in your business, because these businesses I'm talking about, these were billion-dollar companies, right? The third one I'm going to talk about is MySpace. And if you know MySpace, you would also agree with me that they were doing well when they came into the social media space, but after a while, they went the way of dinosaurs. They became forgotten, right? They went in extinction. Now, I'm going to show you some other businesses that avoided this mistake, and because they avoided this mistake, they were able to thrive, they were able to excel regardless of the domain they found themselves and regardless of the competition, regardless of the market forces that were against them. And the first one is Samsung. Many of you use a Samsung phone. The next one I'm going to tell you about is Shell company. I think I can just keep these two for now. So Samsung started out as a business that was just a grocery shop selling noodles, selling fish in a corner shop in Asia. And from doing that, Samsung went on to become what it is today. And the reason they were able to thrive despite their humble beginning and become one of the largest producer of electronics in the world today, become one of the biggest companies when it comes to GDP and revenue in the world today. The reason for that is because they were able to avoid this same mistake that I'm going to be sharing with you in this discussion. Now, the Shell company also had a humble beginning. The Shell company started as a company that was selling actual seashells, right? And from selling seashells, the company avoided this mistake and went on to become an oil company, right? So the company excelled and thrived. While these other companies, they were stuck at a particular level, they stayed stagnant, and they kept making this mistake that I'm going to be sharing with you. And because of that, they were just merely surviving until they were run out of business. Now that we have talked about these different examples of companies that have both made this mistake and companies that avoided this mistake, what do you think the mistake is? I want you to tell me in the comment section. Just type it in the comment section and tell me the mistake that Blackberry made. Tell me the mistake that Nokia made. Tell me the mistake that MySpace made. Tell me the mistake that Samsung made. Or sorry, the mistake that Samsung avoided and the mistake that the Shell company avoided. The mistake that these companies on the left made is that they failed to ignite their creativity. And I'm going to be explaining why that is and how you too can avoid making this mistake. And maybe you're listening to this and you're already making this mistake. You're going to get the solution to overcome that. So they fail to ignite their creativity. Now, in order to explain this better, I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me several years ago. And this story is a story that I'll never forget. Why? Because it's a very touching story. Now, many years ago, it was in the thick of the winter and it was minus 40 degrees in Canada. I don't know if you have ever been in a weather that is minus 40 degrees cold. And so that was the temperature that day. And for some reason, my car was parked outside, and I went out to pick up my car to drive to go get some things. And when I tried to start the ignition of my car, lo and behold, the car would not start. Everything I did, every effort I made to get the car to start did not work, and so I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't feel my ears. I couldn't feel my feet. I was freezing, and I was there for over 1 hour and almost 2 hours, between 1 to 2 hours. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to call, and I was basically stranded. And that describes most businesses today. Most businesses today are stranded, right? So let's assume that this is your business and you're in a place where your revenue is freezing, you're in a place where cash flow is frozen, you're in a place where things are not working, or you're in a place where you're getting some revenue but it's just at that same level. You're making 5 to 6 figures monthly, but it's just at that same level. And even though you're making 5 to 6 figures monthly, you're only basically just breaking even every month. So you're getting a lot of cash flow, and despite you make a lot of money, you're not making a lot of profit. Well, you should listen to this story. So I was stuck outside and I was trying to figure out a way to get my car to to come back to life. And while I was there, I had tried everything I knew to do. I just made a prayer under my breath and I said, God help me, Lord help me. And I made that prayer, and after a while, a good Samaritan came by, and this good Samaritan came. When he came, he did something. He went into his car and then he got a jump start, a tool that can be used to jump start a car with a dead battery, because obviously my car's battery was frozen. And then he went there and came out and he told me to get into my car. He asked me to pop the hood, and I popped the hood, and then he connected the jump start to my car, and he asked me to start the ignition, and boom, the car came back to life. And that was how I was able to get the car out of that place that day, despite the freezing temperature. So why am I telling you this story? Many businesses are like my car that's out in the thick of the winter, and because of the market forces, the accounts are freezing, the cash flow is freezing, it's not flowing as it used to flow or as you would want it to flow. There's no growth, there's no increase, and so you're basically stagnant in business, whether you are a solo entrepreneur or you're an entrepreneur that has employees. And there's one mistake that most people make. When the car is stuck, they'll try to use brute force. By brute force, they'll get people to come push the car. Right? They'll get people to come push the car. And when they get people to come push the car may move a little while, but that is not effective, because you can't push the car from where it's stuck to the city. You can't push the car in the highway where the car would need to move to get to where you want to go to. So there has to be a more optimal way to get this car out of where it is, where it's stuck, or to get your business to where it should be. And the optimal way is to ignite the car. And how did I ignite the car? This car got jump started. It got boosted. That's another word for it. So the car got boosted and it got jump started. So these are the two ways that you want to get this car out of where it is. Now, how does this apply to your business? Now, if your business is stuck and your business is not able to go beyond where it is currently, and your revenue is drying up or your cash flow is frozen up, you want to boost your creativity. The key to overcoming that problem is not to hire more staff like most people think, because hiring more staff is just like getting people to push a car that is stuck. And pushing a car that is stuck will get the car to move an inch or even move a mile, but it can never get the car to move hundreds of miles or hundreds of kilometers per hour. And if you're going to achieve anything in your business, you want to be able to get your business moving at a faster pace with little to no effort from you. And so this is not to say that you should not hire staff, but you want to hire staff only for the right reasons and not to push a dead car or a dead business. Now that we have established that, let's go into the concept of igniting creativity. What does it mean to ignite creativity? What does it mean to ignite your creativity? Should you even ignite your creativity? Why is this so important, right? Can't you just wing it like most entrepreneurs do? Well, if God did not wing it when it came to creativity, why do you think that you can wing it as an entrepreneur? And you ask me, how did God ignite his creativity and how did God not wing it? Well, God did not leave creativity to chance when he was creating. Now, to explain that, I'm going to explain the concept of igniting creativity. When you have a car, and you turn the ignition on this car, something happens when you start the car. When you start the car, the ignition of that car would send a spark to the spark plugs of the vehicle, and when it sends a spark to the spark plugs of the vehicle, that spark will cause the engine to begin to go through what is called the combustion process, right? And that is what makes the car to have the energy that it needs to move from where it is to where it needs to be, because of the spark that ignites the engine of the car. And so that's the concept behind igniting creativity. So let's think of creativity like the engine of this car, and the engine needs to be ignited with a spark so that the car can move from where it is to where it needs to be unstuck. And so in the book of Genesis 1, the Bible says that the earth was without form and void, darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And then God said, "Light be." According to the original Hebrew rendering, God said, "Light be." But in King James Version, it says God said, "Let there be light." And that was in Genesis 4. God said, "Let there be light." And the Hebrew word for light in that verse means illumination. Now, when God said, "Let there be light," God was not creating the sun, the moon, and the stars. God created the sun, the moon, and the stars in Genesis 1, verse 14. God said, "Let there be light in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night." And so God created the light, which represents the sun, the moon, and the stars. And in case you are wondering, how did I know that the light in Genesis 1 verse 14 is different from the light in Genesis 1 verse 3 to 4? The Hebrew word for the light in Genesis 1 verse 3 to 4 means illumination, and then the Hebrew word for the light in Genesis 1 verse 14 means a luminary body, right? And it represents the sun, the moon, and the stars. And if you study the book of Genesis 1 verse 14, when God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens," that was when God now created two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. The greater light to rule the day was the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night was the moon. And so God wanted to create, and the first thing he did was to call for illumination. Why did God need to call for illumination? Because illumination represents insight. And when insights come, it also propels you into action. So illumination that propels you into action is what God was calling for. And the reason why God detailed the creation process in the book of Genesis 1 was so that you and I can learn from the creative process that God set in motion. And so if you want to be able to keep your business thriving, you want to always have illumination. You want to always be able to create that spark that will generate energy. That spark could be an aha moment, right? That spark could be an aha moment. That spark could be a eureka moment. That spark could be an inspiration, an insight that will create illumination, and that illumination will propel you into action. And when illumination propels you into action, then you can create all the different things that you need to create. You can solve all the different problems that you need to solve in your business. But the problem is that instead of going for illumination, what most business owners do and what most entrepreneurs do is that they go for implementation. They go and start looking for what they should do without getting insight, without getting illumination. And so they go hire more people, and when more people come, they try to push a dead car, and they'll get some results, they'll make some progress, but that is not leveraged work. That is work that is laborious and work where you don't get value, you don't get multiplied output for your input. Now, that's not how to make your business thrive. In fact, that's the recipe for staying stuck like chalk in a pickup truck as far as your business is concerned. And so if God knew to ignite his creativity first before doing anything, why do you think that you can wing it? Why do you think that you can succeed without igniting your creativity? Now, this is the mistake that most entrepreneurs make. And I'm going to explain this mistake by giving you a quote by Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison had a famous quote where he says that success is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. And this describes how most entrepreneurs and business owners operate. They operate with 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. So they get an idea, they are inspired, and then they run up with that idea without staying inspired. When they run up with that idea, they start perspiring, they start doing all the hard work that creates perspiration. But because there's no more inspiration, when they face any challenge, they find that they get discouraged and they get stuck, they get stagnant, and then they run out of business. Now, I'm going to explain this further by showing you how a rocket operates. Now, this is a rocket, and it will interest you to know that rockets usually have multiple engines, and these multiple engines have different types of fuel that are put into this engine. So let's say this rocket has 2 engines, and these 2 engines, one is the inspiration and one is the perspiration. If you were to go to space, if you were to fly to space with this rocket, and you were told that you would be given only 10% of inspiration, would you fly? Another interesting fact about rockets is that when a rocket wants to leave the Earth's atmosphere or stratosphere, the rocket is going to expend 90% of its fuel just to leave the gravitational field of the Earth. So let's say this is the gravitational field of the Earth. And let's say this is the Earth. And let's say this is one of the continents, right? Now, let's say this rocket wants to leave the gravitational field. In order for the rocket to successfully leave this place, it needs to attain what is called escape velocity. And before the rocket gets to the brink where it finally escapes, it would have expended 90% of its fuel. If you start a business with 10% inspiration in your tank without igniting creativity, you will start out well, but by the time you run out of inspiration, you'll be lost, you'll be stuck, you'll be frustrated. Why? Because the gravitational pull of rejection, the gravitational pull of market forces trying to keep you down, the gravitational pull of ignorance, of not knowing enough, or not understanding the market, or not understanding your client, the gravitational pull of frustration, the gravitational pull of economic challenges, and a host of other things are going to pull you down. And so this explains why many businesses get stuck. So they don't have their inspiration tank full to the brim. They just have it at a particular level, which is probably 10%. So they just get that business idea and they run up with it. Instead of staying fired up, they don't. And so that's why I believe that success is 100% inspiration and 100% perspiration. If you are going to overcome the forces trying to keep you down as far as your business is concerned, or in your entrepreneurial journey, or in your entrepreneurial leap from where you are to where you want to be, you have to be fully loaded. You have to have your inspiration tank fully loaded, because it is your inspiration tank that will fuel the action, that will fuel the brilliant action that you require to surmount all the challenges that will come your way. You have to stay inspired. You have to stay in the place where you believe that your ideas are valid and they would work, not because you just want to believe it blindly, but because you have been inspired with a why based on a what for a who. And because of these, you know that what you're doing is worth the while. That keeps you inspired, and that keeps your engine working. That keeps your creativity firing on all cylinders. And when your creativity is firing on all cylinders, there's no challenge that you won't be able to surmount on your way out of the gravitational pull of rejection, the gravitational pull of economic challenges and economic downturn, or the gravitational pull of dealing with your day-to-day business runnings. And so this is the number one mistake that most entrepreneurs and businesses make that keeps them stuck at a particular level, whether it's 5 to 6 figures or 7 figures. And in case you are wondering, how do I ignite my creativity? Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I have a book titled Ignite Your Creativity, and you can get this book on Amazon for $30, and then the Kindle version is $10. You can get it from Amazon. It's a very loaded book. Now, the content of this book is what I will share with you if you were to hire me to coach you for 8 hours. And now I have gotten professionals to turn this book into an audiobook so that you can download it and listen to it without paying anything. And so if you would like to have a copy of this audiobook so that you can listen to it while you're driving, so that you can listen to it while you're biking, listen to it while you're on the gym or on the treadmill, or while you're just doing stuff around the house, then you can click the link below this video and you're going to put in your name and your email, and you will get this audiobook, the audio version of this book, sent to your email straight away. So you want to put the right email so that you can get the complete audio. And guess what? If you were to hire me to coach you for 8 hours, I charge $10,000 per hour. And that amount is not something I just made up. In fact, I never sell anything. I never provide any service for a fee if I cannot give my clients 10 times what they paid for in return or in result. And so the reason why I charge that for consulting or for one-on-one coaching is because of the result that I have proven to be able to give to my clients and to their businesses, and people pay that. So you can either choose to hire me and pay my hourly rate, or you can get this book which contains what I will share with you if you were to hire me to coach you for 8 hours, or if you were to invite me to come speak at your event for 3 full days. And so this book will help you overcome the number one mistake that most businesses make that keeps them stuck like chalk in a pickup truck. And so if you don't want your business to go the way of dinosaurs, if you don't want your business to go down or forgotten like Blackberry, Nokia and MySpace, then you want to get this book. You can get the hard copy on Amazon, or you can get the audio version for free by clicking the link below this video, inserting your name and email, and the audiobook will be sent to your email. And you can stay inspired while you're driving, while you're on the treadmill, while you're biking, and doing all the other fun stuff that you do. So I hope this blessed you. I hope you found value in this conversation. Definitely check out the audiobook and you'll be glad you did. So have a good one and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.